Hello everyone, welcome back. Hands-on lab are the great way to reinforce theoretical knowledge. Before diving into the lab, make sure you have access to the Azure subscription where you have permission to set up resources like virtual networks, subnet, and the virtual machines. This lab on Azure Firewall should give you a practical understanding of the Azure Firewall and its configuration. This is basically going to be your lab topology for the Azure Firewall. We will start from one VNet where you are going to host the firewall. And for hosting a firewall, you need a dedicated subnet, which should be /24. Then you are going to have another subnet where we are going to host a virtual machine. And from this virtual machine, we are going to test various connectivity and the firewall functionality. Top of that, you can have more VNets, and this is going to be part of your hub and spoke topology. So the resources hosted in these VNets, they can also utilize the same functionality, and the traffic goes from this firewall to internet and to other spokes. Before you deploy Azure Firewall, a couple of things you need to understand. First is going to be the SKU. So there are type of SKUs, basic, standard, and premium. You need to choose as per your requirement. The second critical point comes through availability zones. And we all know there are availability zones, and one region can have multiple availability zones like this. You can see in the figure, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. And this impacts your SLA, your service availability. For a proximity reason, you might choose that you want to deploy the firewall in a particular zone. And if this zone goes down, your services will be unavailable. For that reason, you can choose the option for high availability. So when this firewall scales up, the new instances will be spinned up across multiple zones. And it is going to give you the 99.99 uptime if you go for the availability zone options. And if you go for the zone specific deployment, then the SLA is going to be 99.95. One thing you need to keep in mind when you choose the option for high availability, you will be charged for the data transfer which will happen between your zones. As the firewall scales, it creates instance in the zone is in. So if the firewall is in zone 1, only new instances will be created in zone 1 only. If the firewall is available in 3 zones, that means the instances will be across 3 zones as it scales. The next critical option is to choose the policies. So policy type can be basic, standard, and premium. Basic policy is going to work with the basic, which gives you the basic functionality. And if you go for standard or premium, you can still use the standard policies. And if you go for the premium policy, which works with your premium SKU, it gives you all this functionality that is going to be in addition to the standard feature set. Azure Firewall deployment, that is going to be a pretty easy task. So you need to sign in into your Azure portal or subscription, and from there you can choose the Azure services, and under Azure services you go to the firewalls, and once you click on the firewall you get an option to create a firewall. So let's see the option comes. So you need to choose your subscription and your resource group, and in this case I'm going to create a new resource group which is going to be the firewall. Then you need to give it a name for the firewall. So I will say, or simply let's just put the firewall test. The reason is going to be East US availability zone. As I have mentioned, you can choose a zone specific deployment if you need the proximity, or you can go for all the zones. So when the next instance spins off during the scale up process, it can be in zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3. Then you need to choose the option for the firewall SKU. Here I'm going to choose option for which is going to be the standard one. Then you need to look into the firewall management. use the firewall policy to manage this firewall, or you can go for the firewall rule. So let's start from the firewall management with the classic approach. Then you need to create or choose a virtual network this firewall is going to be part of. So in my case, I'm going to choose, let's go for create a new one. I will just name it as firewall vnet, and let's go for the range what we have decided earlier for our lab 0.0/16, and then you need to choose your firewall subnet. So firewall subnet I have mentioned earlier, it cannot be less than 24, so I will go for the first dot one. That is bringing this as a green. It means the subnet has been taken, and you need to choose the public IP address. So in this case also I will create public IP address, which is going to be the standard, and it is going to be the zone redundant. So let's understand the thing. If you can create a public IP address separately, and if you're not going to mention the zones, then it is going to be the zone redundant. Let's click OK, and we'll name it tunneling. We will talk later on. As of now, I will keep it disabled. Tags, I don't want to give it a tag. Review, and it tells me there is some information which is missing. Let's take a look. So we basically wanted to do, this is a VNet, and firewall subnet range was supposed to be .1. Ten ten, my bad. This is supposed to be 16, so that 24 falls within this range. 10.10.0.16, and it should work. Yep. Let's go for the tag, review, and now once the validation is passed, I'm going to hit a create button. There's still error, and I'm reaching beyond 10. So I need to delete a couple of IPs from my subscription. So I'm going to pause this video. Let me just do some cleanup work and I'll be back. I'm done with the cleanup work. So let's try to review and create it again. So I'll go to the previous stage, and from here I can review and create. And this time we should get the success. And that works. So validation is passed at this moment. So now let's hit the create button. I'm going to pause this video and will resume once this deployment is completed. This deployment for Azure Firewall is completed, and let's see the deployment details. So under the deployment details, you see there is a, this is instance name and status is okay. Then you have one public IP address which is attached, and it is part of the firewall VNet. The status is okay. So everything looks good. You can go to the resource, and from resource you can basically look into the details what you have done. So firewall private IP address is going to be .4. That is the first IP address from the range, which I had in this case our range was /24. And then you can go to DNS that I'm going to cover later on. Rules, we have chosen to do the classic rules. Then you have option for the NAT rule, you have option for the network rule, and then the application rule. And there is a way how these rules are processed based on the priority, based on the type of rule. Public IP address, this is a public IP address which is associated. You can add more public IPs from here. Then threat intelligence, firewall manager, all those options are there and the features are provided by the standard firewall. And we will explore these options one by one while doing the lab. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next section.